war ended, the waiting did not. A photograph remains on the altar. A grave remains without a name. A son, a brother, a father still not home. Vietnam's 500-day campaign to search for, recover, and identify its fallen soldiers. 500 days to search, 500 days to identify, 500 days to bring the fallen home. Day 135, 365 days left. No time to lose.
Good morning and welcome to our special live coverage marking Vietnam War's Invalids and Martyrs Day, July 27th. More than half a century has passed since the war ended, yet for hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese families, the search has never truly ended.
Across the country and beyond Vietnam's borders, efforts are still underway to search for, recover, and identify the remains of fallen soldiers. It is a mission shaped by history, memory, and duty. But today it is also a race against time.
Chúng ta không thể triển khai một cách làm thông thường, mà phải thực hiện một chiến dịch cao điểm, sâu rộng, chặt chẽ, khoa học, bài bản, nghiêm túc.
The greatest determination supported by the most advanced technologies and equipment. Countless meetings to trace every possible clue. Laboratories working around the clock. Encounters, phone calls, and messages carrying hope after decades of waiting. And the 500-day campaign to search for, recover, and identify the remains of fallen soldiers is built around 5 key objectives. Recover the remains of 7,000 fallen soldiers. Collect DNA samples from 230,000 unidentified graves. Conduct DNA analysis on 18,000 sets of fallen soldiers' remains. Complete a nationwide genetic database of fallen soldiers' relatives. Accelerate mine and unexploded ordnance clearance in key search areas. Behind these numbers lies the hope of reunion for millions of Vietnamese families.
Nhớ con thương, nó là nhân nhất đấy. Rồi cứ muốn là các chú các anh nhà nước tìm được bộ em là sướng rồi. Nhiều cái bộ chưa có tên anh chưa biết, chiến công anh bất diệt.
Chương trình này nói thật là ý nghĩa, nói thật nhân văn. Hầu như không phải gia đình tôi mà giá điểm hạnh phúc rất nhiều người trong toàn quốc.
After more than 4 months of implementation, the campaign has achieved encouraging initial results. As of July 26, 2026, nearly 1,500 sets of fallen soldiers' remains had been recovered. Tens of thousands of DNA samples from recovered remains and relatives have been collected for analysis. The National Genetic Database continues to expand, while mine clearance operations have accelerated, creating greater opportunities to bring Vietnamese fallen heroes home.
Mỗi bộ hài cốt liệt sĩ được tìm thấy hôm nay không chỉ là một kết quả của công tác chuyên môn mà còn là sự trở về của một người con với Tổ quốc, với gia đình, là sự trở về của một phần lịch sử.
The 500-day campaign continues, honoring those who made the ultimate sacrifice and Vietnam's enduring tradition of remembering those who gave their lives for future generations to live in peace.
Now, it has been more than 130 days since Vietnam started the 500-day campaign to accelerate the search, repatriation, and identification of martyrs' remains. The question is, what will it take for this campaign to succeed?
And of course, to help us understand the scale, significance, and challenges of these missions, we're now joined by our guest from Texas Tech University in the United States, Dr. Stephen Maxner, Director of the Vietnam Centers and Archive, and Dr. Alex Taibo, Assistant Research Professor of the History at the Vietnam Center, Texas Tech University. Thank you both of our guests for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us too.
Yes, so Dr. Vo, let me begin with you. From your perspective as a historian, how significant is Vietnam's effort in this 500-day campaign?
Vietnam's 500-day campaign is historically important because it really transformed the search effort for the wartime missings from a long-term aspirations of most people in the nation into a national commitment as well as a national movement. So with more than 50 years over, since the end of the Vietnam War, with over 200,000 still missing that we're trying to identify, this campaign is essential in terms of pushing the pace, because essentially a lot of the folks involved in the war are now aging, right? Evidence is disappearing.
And Dr. Maxner, your work with the Vietnam Center and Archives involves wartime documents, records, and testimonies. So when we talk about a campaign of this scale, very large scale in fact, how important are archives and historical materials?
Well, they serve as the foundation for everything that we're doing. You know, the first step in trying to find locations where soldiers might be buried is doing historical research in archives, looking at the documents that we have, not just in the United States, but of course the documents here in Vietnam. And so the historical collections, that's the first step. And that's the case not just for the Vietnam Wartime Accounting Initiative and the work that we're doing here in Vietnam with National Steering Committee 515 and Deputy Prime Minister Cha's office, but also is the foundation for the work that the United States has been doing to account for our own missing.
Yes, Dr. Maxner. And every search begins with a clue. At some point, those clues must be tested on the ground in villages, forests, former battlefields, and sometimes even in the middle of a modern city.
Yes, and one of the active search sites is Lê Thị Riêng Park in Ho Chi Minh City, where for the past month, excavation work has been being carried out and drawing a lot of our attention. And our reporter Sơn Anh is standing by at the site to give us the latest update on the search progress there. Sơn Anh, what can you tell us from where you're standing?
Now I'm reporting live from Lê Thị Riêng Park in Ho Chi Minh City, where search teams continue their work under Vietnam's nationwide 500-day campaign to recover the remains of fallen soldiers. Now, since July the 4th, the search area beside the park's traditional house has been expanded more than 100 square meters, with excavation reaching depths of 2 to 3 meters. Heavy machinery removes the upper layer of soil before search teams continue carefully by hand whenever there are signs of possible human remains. On July the 24th, acting on information provided by witnesses, recovery teams carried out exploratory excavations at a new location within the park. They recovered 3 sets of collective martyrs' remains and 1 individual set of remains, together with a number of personal artifacts. More than 70 cubic meters of soil were excavated during the day's operation. And now, as the end of July 25th, military search teams have recovered a total of 103 individual sets of martyrs' remains, along with 2 collective sets of remains. Authorities say the searched area will be expanded, with further updates expected after 4 p.m. every day. Now back to the studio.
Well, thank you, Sơn Anh, for the update. And Ho Chi Minh City is not the only location where search teams are working against time. And in central Vietnam, another excavation is underway in Da Nang City, which was one of the localities deeply affected by the war.
Now, decades later, the work of searching for martyrs' remains here still requires careful verification, close coordination, and above all, patience. Our reporter Thương Nam is now at the excavation site of Da Sap Cave, more than 40 kilometers from the center of Da Nang City. So Thương Nam, what is the situation there at the moment?
The site lies deep in the mountains, and it takes the search teams about an hour climbing to get here. Search teams have just recovered another set of modest remains from this cave this weekend, bringing the total number to 9. And as you can see behind me, the search is continuing right now. Because this was much more than a small shelter, it is actually a system of caves and several military units used to use the site as a base. And search team believes that many more people may still be inside. Now, the entrance collapsed after a bombing on April 25, 1969, and soldiers and civilian workers were believed to be still inside at the time.
Right, so Chung Nam, what are the teams focusing on right now?
Well, they are trying to move faster before the rainy season, as the terrains can quickly become very dangerous. But it is also difficult because the work cannot be rushed, and every layer of soil has to be checked very carefully. And this was once a place where soldiers lived, ate and slept together. Witnesses say 8 were inside when the cave collapsed, but belongings discovered deeper inside the cave suggest that others may also have been there, and that is why the search continues.
Thank you, Nam, for the update from Da Nang. And the total of more than 110 sets of martyrs' remains recovered. These 2 search sites are now part of the nearly 1,500 fallen soldiers' remains that have been recovered nationwide during the 500-day and night campaign so far. And to see how far the campaign has progressed towards its overall missions, we now take a closer look at the latest figures. The first goal of the 500 Days and Night campaign is clear: to recover 7,000 fallen soldiers' remains, bringing home more than there to the families. As of July 24, 2026, the search teams has recovered 1,488 sets of remains, representing approximately 21.1% of the campaign's target. And among them, 458 were recovered in Vietnam, 174 were recovered in Laos, and 850 were recovered in Cambodia. Across the country, 32 specialized recovery teams with a combined strength of more than 1,500 personnel continue their missions every day.
So, Dr. Võ, we have just seen the updates from different excavation sites, and this campaign is shown that is taking place across a wide geographical area, not only in provinces but also cities within Vietnam and in former battle zones in Laos and Cambodia as well. So, how important is this cross-border dimension in understanding the complexity of it?
Right. So, a missing person might come from a particular province, but might serve in a different province and might fallen in a different country. And so this is something that we need to understand very, very well, the complexity of this nature, of this effort, right? The complexity of this international cross-border dimension, whereby cooperations among nations is extremely important. So the reliance on U.S. records is extremely important because these records oftentimes lead to a grid coordinates of an area where a certain items were captured. Maybe a certain soldiers had fallen, as well as aerial imagery, as well as wartime photography, as well as many other types of documentations during the war. And of course, we supplement that with the testimonies of veterans who can share their knowledge that they experienced, their recollections of them participating in battles as well as in burial efforts. And so those efforts and the combining of those evidence and information is extremely important in this effort in which we are trying to do right now.
Right. The introduction of these materials really put us a stride forward progress in the campaign. Right. So for decades, the scar of war have remained buried beneath Vietnam's soil, leaving thousands of families in both Vietnam and the U.S. without answers. And today, those hidden remnants of the past are forging an extraordinary story of reconciliation, as one American veteran has devoted his retirement to helping Vietnam recover the remains of soldiers still missing from the war.
For Richard Magner, former U.S. Army helicopter pilot, the 6-hour drive from his home in Connecticut to the U.S. National Archives in College Park, Maryland, has become a routine for the past decade. What keeps bringing you back to the National Archives years after years?
To find that one image that really goes a long way in solving a mystery about a particular mass grave.
To find this one image is no easy feat. There are 75,000 counts of film that might contain information about mass graves, and each can thousands of aerial photos. Identifying and scanning the right frame is like searching for a needle in a haystack. This particular image proved crucial to the recent recovery of soldiers' remains in Gounyi, Guangxi.
Most disappointing aspects of it is that probably 25 to over 30% of the films that we've identified that we want to look at, they end up being cloud covered. So it's in some respects it's a lot of time, it's hit and miss before we find a really good image, and it takes time.
So far, his research is helping identify around 10 mass grave sites across Vietnam. One of the most significant discoveries was in Loc Ninh, Đồng Nai, where the remains of more than 200 soldiers have been recovered.
Well, I put it away for so many years, but now that I got involved, it's consumed me. Because it's just been an indelible thing in my mind that I need to resolve.
Now, to meet the 79-year-old veteran featured in our report, let's go to our reporter Tung Phan, who is at the U.S. National Archives and Records Administration in Maryland. Tung, can you tell us more about where you're standing?
Thank you, Chen. Now I'm here today with Mr. Richard Magner, a U.S. war veteran who spent the last 10 years finding information about mass graves and have located the remains of Vietnamese soldiers. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, your work has contributed to the recovery of more than 200 sets of remains in Loc Ninh, and more recently, additional remains in Gounyi, Guangxi, as seen in the report. So, how do you reflect on these achievements?
Well, that's probably the... I'm getting a little emotional here, but that's probably certainly the biggest reward for all this work so far. And working with Tong, we were able to put together a very good packet to share with the Lockman folks in the local K team. And then after our 24 trip, less than a month later, we were getting results. That was amazing.
The 500 Days campaign, looking at the progress so far, what do you see as the campaign's broader significance?
The Vietnamese government has been very, very successful in publicizing this initiative or program. And it has really gotten out to the populace, from my understanding. Not being there, but listening to friends of mine that live in Vietnam that are not involved at all, but have become aware of it. So I think it's an amazing effort, and a lot of information has surfaced, which goes to helping to find the mass graves, and therefore relieving families of their suffering and giving them solace to the loved ones and the family members. And that's why I wish we could somehow have, I mean, I'm realistic, but something at least in that measure here in the U.S. to get word out to the U.S. veterans of the war.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me, and it's been enjoyable spending time with you. Thanks a lot.
Now back to you, Chen.
Yes, thank you, Tung Phan and Mr. Magner.
So, Dr. Magner, what does it tell us when the children and grandchildren of missing American civic members are now contributing information that may help Vietnamese families find their own loved ones?
There's been an ongoing effort to help the United States in accounting for their missing. And that was a very important part of the early bilateral relationship between our two nations.
Yes. And we know that for years now, memories carried by former soldiers on both sides have been helping uncover the fate of those missing. And following decades of Vietnamese cooperation in the accounting for U.S. MIAs, U.S.-funded initiatives are now supporting Vietnam's own search efforts with the potential to contribute to the ongoing 500-day campaign.
For many veterans, unanswered questions about those left behind have endured for decades, but have also brought former adversaries into contact and turned personal memories into new search leads. With the aim of facilitating those efforts, the Vietnam Wartime Accounting Initiative, a U.S. government's program, connects veterans, researchers, and authorities and arrange visits to possible mass grave sites in Vietnam.
It's a very meaningful and even spiritual kind of work. It's remarkable that people who were on opposite sides of the war and have great personal and family losses can come together and share their stories and work together to find answers in both countries. So that, to me, it's a process of peace building.
Thus, shared experience of loss has also fostered understanding among families on both sides. Mission POW-MIA, an organization seeking the fullest possible accounting of Americans missing from past conflicts, is extending its humanitarian effort through Operation Heart. The program collects and returns wartime records, personal effects, and other artifacts connected to missing Americans and Vietnamese.
For me, if I'm not able to get my loved one back, to have an item like, a dog tag, an ID card, a piece of his, flight suit, something like that, that means a lot to me. It's not closure, but it's peace. I think it would probably be the same thing for the other side.
I'm very appreciative of Vietnam doing that campaign. It's very meaningful for the whole country to come together like that and everybody work together to get those answers. I think it's important for those families. I know how I feel, and having answers would be wonderful.
With efforts joined and cooperation expanded, the search and recovery are expected to gather pace. The work is increasingly urgent as veterans grow older and former battlefields continue to change.
Now, beyond the cooperation between individual agencies and organizations, government-to-government collaboration has also been a driving force behind efforts to address the legacy of war in Vietnam. And to learn more about how the United States and Vietnam are working together in this important area, we're now connecting with Ms. Courtney Bill, Deputy Chief of Mission at the U.S. Embassy in Vietnam. Thank you, Ms. Bill, for joining us. Now, to start, I want to ask that the United States has long been a partner in helping Vietnam address the legacy of war. So could you walk us through the major areas where the U.S. government is currently working alongside Vietnam, and how has this evolution changed the way the United States and Vietnam work together?
Sure. Our work together in this area to address the legacies of war is really foundational to the comprehensive strategic partnership that the U.S. and Vietnam enjoy today. And a few examples include our work to remediate dioxin at Bien Hoa Air Base, our work to improve the lives of people with disabilities regardless of cause, as well as our work to help Vietnam find its own fallen soldiers in support of the 500 Days and Nights campaign. In addition, we work through veterans exchanges between U.S. and Vietnam veterans, as well as public-private partnerships to bring in additional resources and technology and outside expertise so that we can do everything we can to help support Vietnam in this area.
Right, and as both countries deepen their partnership, what message would you like both people in both Vietnam and the United States to take away from these joint efforts to heal the wounds of war and build a shared future?
I really hope that people see this work and can see that we hope the United States and Vietnam can be a model for the world and how two countries can reconcile and go from being foes to friends. So we've now had established our bilateral relationship 31 years ago and have become comprehensive strategic partners, really working together across a broad range of issues, from trade and investment to science and technology, people-to-people ties and education, as well as defense and security and law enforcement. We're very proud to support the Vietnamese government to work alongside each other on all of our war legacy programs, including in support of the 500 Days and Night campaign, and see it as yet another way that we can strengthen our comprehensive strategic partnership.
Yes, once again, thank you, Deputy Chief of Mission, for your insights.
For fallen soldiers remain is no longer based solely on field surveys or eyewitness accounts. Increasingly, it is supported by scientific methods and data-driven analysis. Now let's see how this scientific approach works in practice, using the search at Lê Thị Riêng Park in Ho Chi Minh City as an example. Step 1. Investigators began by analyzing a series of archival photographs taken during the burials of Vietnamese soldiers in 1968 by comparing landmarks, background features, and the sequence of the images. They were able to confirm that the burial site was located within what is now Lê Thị Riêng Park. And step 2, the historical photographs were then combined with the aerial photograph, satellite imagery from different periods, and historical maps using digital layer overlay technique. Researchers narrowed the search areas and identified the most likely locations of the collective burial trenches, allowing search team to excavate with much greater precision. And once a search area has been identified, the next step is to verify it using advanced non-invasive technologies before any excavation begins. And for the first time, the campaign is introducing ground penetrating radar, or GPR, to support the search for fallen soldier remains. And the Lê Thị Riêng Park case is just one example of how science and technologies are transforming the search for Vietnam's fallen heroes. So far, researchers have compiled around 250 battle dossiers documenting historical battles and potential collective burial sites across the country.
When we're talking about the 500-day campaign to search for and recover the remains of Vietnam's fallen soldiers, it has only recently begun, but it already achieved encouraging results. It is the largest search effort ever carried out in peacetime, bringing together the military, scientists, and local communities across the country. And behind these results is a group of researchers who have quietly worked on this mission for nearly 10 years.
For almost a decade, architect Nguyễn Xuân Thắng focuses on bringing old battlefields back to life through historical records. By comparing wartime aerial photos, military maps, and what remains at the sites today, he helps identify places where fallen soldiers may have been buried.
Thì phải dựa vào các cái tư liệu không ảnh, các cái tư liệu ảnh vệ tinh do vệ tinh viễn thám của Mỹ chụp ngày xưa, rồi xử lý so sánh tìm các cái dấu vết, đánh dấu các vị trí ngày xưa và chuyển sang vị trí bây giờ, tọa độ hóa, vector hóa, tính toán được diện tích chính xác để truyền cho cơ quan chức năng có cái cơ sở để thăm dò khảo sát.
While Nguyễn Xuân Thắng works on maps and locations, engineer Lâm Hồng Tiên searches through wartime records. He has spent years studying millions of pages of U.S. military reports, battle maps, and archived documents. By comparing military units, dates, and battle information, he helps narrow down the areas where soldiers may have been buried before the team checks them in the field.
Cái quá trình mà tìm hiểu thông tin từ trong phía Mỹ, đặc biệt từ trong cái kho của bên Đại học Công nghệ Texas, có thông tin về những trường hợp có thể trong một cái bảng danh sách liệt sĩ của đơn vị mà bị của đội Mỹ thu giữ, thì lúc đó thì sẽ có thể là xác định được rằng với cái người mà bộ đội người liệt sĩ kia mà chưa xác định được thông tin thì bây giờ là có thể được xác định được là người ta hy sinh vào thời điểm nào, ngày tháng năm nào chính xác, ở cái khu vực tỉnh hoặc xã hoặc huyện nào đó, hoặc thậm chí có thể là theo tọa độ tọa độ tất nhiên là tọa độ UTM 6 số của bên quân đội Mỹ.
Trong trận đánh là người ta sẽ có cái hồ sơ báo cáo mà trong đó cũng có thể là liên quan đến cả cái việc tôn các liệt sĩ của chúng ta, có tọa độ, chỉ là có các tư liệu kèm theo. Cái nguồn đấy là được lưu trữ, còn cái nguồn nữa là cái nguồn mà trong các cá nhân, những người cựu binh Hoa Kỳ. Trận đánh này diễn ra vào ngày nào, khung thời gian nào, khoảng thời gian nào, ở địa bàn nào. Đấy, thì mình sẽ lập cái hồ sơ theo trận đánh. Quanh vùng cái vị trí càng hẹp thì càng tốt.
The researchers developed their own method to correct these images by combining them with military maps, declassified documents, satellite images, and field surveys. This reduces the search area from several hectares to about 100 to 200 square meters, and sometimes even smaller. This method has helped provide scientific evidence for the discovery of a mass grave at Lê Thị Riêng Park in Ho Chi Minh City and helped identify a suspected mass burial site on Tung Ting Street in Kon Tum Ward, Quảng Ngãi Province, allowing authorities to carry out excavation work.
And in the next phase of the 500 Days and Night campaign, several former battle sites are expected to become key area of focus. But in this chapter, we want to focus on one essential point. Fighting remain is not the end of the journey. So, Dr. Alex, do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, finding remains is only the beginning of it, right? The essential ultimate goal of this is to reconstruct the history of an individual, right? Of individuals who once exist, who sacrifice, and who now are still missing. So our efforts is not simply just finding a remain and returning it, right? But through historical research, through the evidence that we have, is to reconstruct the identity of these individuals, their names, where they came from, who they are related to, so that we bring true meanings to the recovery efforts.
And that is why the campaign is not only about searching more widely, but also about identifying more accurately. From former battlefields to laboratories, the missions continue with one ultimate purpose, not simply to recover remains, but to return fallen heroes to their names. Because only when a name is restored can a family receive the answers and a soldier truly come home. And recovering the remain is the only first step. The next challenge is even greater, restoring the identities of Vietnam's fallen heroes. The campaign aims to collect bone samples from approximately 230,000 unidentified graves located in the cemetery across the country. And as of July 24, 2026, nearly 80,000 samples from unidentified graves have been taken, about 34.6% of the overall target. And at the same time, authorities have collected more than 93,000 DNA reference samples from the relative of fallen soldiers. And the current goal is to successfully identify 18,000 sets of remains through DNA analysis. And today, Vietnam primarily relies on mitochondrial DNA or mtDNA for identification. And the problem is mitochondrial DNA is inherited only through the maternal line. And today, new hope lies in nuclear DNA technology, which is now being researched and tested in Vietnam. Because nuclear DNA carries genetic information inherited from both parents, it can significantly expand the pools of eligible family members for comparisons. And that theoretical hope is now becoming a reality on the ground. Let's take a closer look at how this advanced nuclear DNA breakthrough is being put into practice.
The journey to reclaim a name begins at sites like Dòng Giềng Martyrs Cemetery in An Giang Province. Here, nearly 1,000 sets of highly degraded remains were sampled for DNA analysis. It is a race against a harsh environment. The remains were then transferred to the Center for DNA Identification in Hanoi, where scientists has applied a groundbreaking method transferred by the ICMP. Instead of traditional extraction, scientists use targeted primers to chemically extract the fragmented human nuclear DNA. By utilizing next-generation sequencing, they can scan up to 5,000 genetic markers, drastically expanding the pool of eligible family members for a match.
Cả một cái quy trình phân tích ADN của mẫu hài cốt nó có nhiều bước khác nhau. Thí dụ như là bước đầu tiên là bước xử lý mẫu xương này, xong bước tiếp theo là bước tách chiết ADN, rồi bước tiếp theo nữa là định lượng và phân tích cái dịch tách ADN đó như thế nào, rồi bước tiếp theo nữa mới là quy trình chuẩn bị thư viện, gọi là đó là quy trình chuẩn bị hóa chất để đưa lên máy giải trình tự. Rồi sau đấy mới là quy trình kiểm tra cái thư viện đấy xem như thế nào, rồi mới đến quy trình giải trình tự, xong rồi mọi người mới phân tích cái kết quả giải trình tự đó.
The biggest challenge with dealing with the current remains is applying processes that are optimized to be able to process them and get good results from those samples. The one thing about these samples is that it's a lot, it's bulk processing, and it's important to ensure that your quality systems are in place from the beginning so that you don't have a build-up of problems or issues occurring in future.
Well, this is a cutting-edge technology that comes from the most recent developments in the field, employing what we call genomic technology. And what makes it different from before is that this is highly sensitive technology that is able to look at the smallest pieces of DNA. And that's important because the DNA from the mortal remains in the graves is chopped into the very smallest pieces. So we need this level of sensitivity. The other thing that it allows us to do is look at thousands of points of information within the DNA. Instead of the previous methods that looked at only one kind of DNA, now we're looking at thousands. And that allows us to make identifications to single family members, whether they're on the mother's side, whether they're on the father's side. And also we can compare to even distant relatives, like a grandparent or a grandchild, or an aunt or an uncle or a cousin.
Through this advanced workflow, every successfully sequenced profile brings science one step closer to bridging the gap between the past and the final reunion.
Right. So, Dr. Maxner, how do you see DNA technology, contributing to both sides' efforts to bring the missing home?
Well, I think for the United States, of course, we had an advantage in terms of focusing on this effort very early following the war. And so American researchers, American scientists were able to extract matrilineal DNA, so basically the mother's line of DNA. And that was important. That's important for mtDNA, the mitochondrial DNA. Vietnam also emphasized early on. But because of the nature of the degradation of remains in Vietnam and because of the nature of familial ties being so broad within Vietnam, it was almost impossible to actually tie Vietnamese remains with Vietnamese families until, again, the next generation sequencing. And to be very, very frank about it, the important developments here in Vietnam by Vietnamese scientists working with the Vietnamese Academy of Science and Technology. They developed the chemical extraction techniques that now make it possible to do that broader connection between found remains here and also the broader family sampling that's available.
Right. And we know that the Vietnam Center and Archive at Texas Tech University preserves wartime documents, photographs, maps, and personal items donated by American veterans, as well as captured documents now stored on microfilm. And our reporter, Lena Pham, is there live. So, Lena, what can you show us from the archive?
Yes, I'm standing in the Vietnam Center, Sam Johnson Vietnam Archive, home to the largest non-governmental collections with more than 30 million documents related to the American war in Vietnam. And I'm very happy to be joined here today with Professor Ron Milam. He is the Executive Director for Institute for Peace and Conflict.
I would be glad to show you some of our artifacts. Let's take a look.
So these are the rubber sandals. What's so special about the artifacts here?
We have what Americans used to call Ho Chi Minh sandals. And if we were in a battle and we had prisoners or we had men that had been killed, we could look on the back side and we could sort of determine how long they had been walking, and that would tell us a little bit about their experience.
What about this very beautiful painting? Can you tell us about its origin and how did you get it here in Texas Tech Archive?
This painting is quite unbelievable. We have over 30 million pages of materials in our archive, and we're always discovering things that are new. And for us to have found this, and it raises so many questions, because a lot of people think that archives are somehow just things in boxes. And yet this is an active idea that we have that maybe we could find the person who painted this. Somehow or other we could find the people that actually did this painting, the man who did that, because it's of a bakshi, a metic. It's beautiful. And the question we would have is, how did it find its way into an American's rucksack that he would want to eventually send it to us here at Texas Tech University? So I think it raises more questions than it provides answers. Who painted it? When was it painted? Where was it found? I wish I had the answers.
Well, I think we have the answer for you. Back to the studio.
Well, thank you, Lina, for bringing us inside the Vietnam Centers and Archive at Texas Tech Universities. And there's something we would like to share with you now. You can see in the screen right now is a sketch we have seen earlier. Along with some other sketches through our own search, we have found that these sketches were created by the same persons. And they are not isolated pieces. They belong to one hand, one memory, one story. Joining us in the studio is painter Lê Đức Tuấn, a very guest connected to this story. Cảm ơn bác đã tham gia chương trình. Yeah, then he made these sketches during his time fighting the American forces in the Central Highlands in 1968.
Vâng, thưa chú, khi được tận mắt chứng kiến những bức tranh đang được lưu trữ ở một kho lưu trữ ở Mỹ, thì chú có cảm xúc như thế nào?
Tôi cũng rất là xúc động được gặp lại những đứa con tinh thần của tôi, và cũng qua đây để gửi lời cảm ơn tới ông và những người ở phía bên kia đã trân trọng gìn giữ những sản vật văn hóa này, mang đầy tính nhân văn cho hôm nay và mai sau.
Vâng, và người trong bức ảnh là ai, và chú có thể chia sẻ một chút về câu chuyện phía sau cái bức ảnh này được không ạ?
Tôi thì ký họa vẽ rất nhiều, cho nên là lâu nay thì chỉ nhớ, tức là đây cũng là một anh, tức là cùng đồng đội của tôi ở trong đơn vị của tôi cũng nhớ, nhưng mà nói chung là cái thời gian nó quá lâu, cho nên là cái nhớ này nó cũng không phải là tuyệt đối. Thế nhưng mà có điều là tất cả những cái đứa con tinh thần này là khi những vẽ ai thì tôi cũng đều nhớ, và tôi cũng, hiện nay thì những người trong tranh đều người còn người mất, thì hiện nay thì tôi cũng nhớ, không thể nhớ hết được vì nó quá nhiều. Thế nhưng mà những cái gì đặc biệt thì tôi vẫn nhớ. Và hai nữa, cái bức tranh này thì vẽ một đồng đội y tá của tôi thì tôi cũng vẫn hình dung ra được và nhớ là cùng chiến đấu với tôi trong chiến trường.
Vâng. Và qua những cái chia sẻ của cái đầu cầu bên Mỹ vừa rồi thì chú có muốn gửi lời gì tới họ không ạ?
Qua cái chia sẻ và hai nữa gặp gỡ những người ở phía bên kia thì tôi thấy là tôi rất là trân trọng và cảm ơn những người ở bên phía bên kia, và cảm ơn ông đã là người đã gìn giữ những cái sản phẩm văn hóa để cho hôm nay và cho mai sau hiểu được. Và cũng qua đây tôi thấy là muốn khép lại cái quá khứ đau thương và muốn hướng tới cái tương lai tươi sáng giữa hai dân tộc chúng ta hợp tác, hòa bình và hữu nghị.
So Mr. Tuấn just said that thank you so much to you and Texas Tech for keeping this artifact in a very good condition, and he hoped that we can set aside the pain and the trauma in the past to work together to move towards reconciliation.
Well, Mr. Tuấn, I agree with everything you just said. I know that our preservation of your beautiful work here at Texas Tech University is very important to us, and the idea that it can help with the reconciliation between our two countries and between veterans of all sides of this war is so very important. Thank you so much for this beautiful painting and allowing us to preserve it here at Texas Tech. Thank you.
The 500-day campaign is a race against time, but it is also a journey of responsibility to search, to identify, to remember, and to bring the fallen home. And because behind every clue is a possible answer, and behind every answer is a family that has waited for decades. And behind every name restored is a soldier finally returned to his place in history.
And on the occasions of Vietnam's War Invalids and Martyrs Day, July 27, we pay tribute to the fallen heroes, to their families, and to all those who continue this difficult but profoundly meaningful missions. And thank you for watching our special live coverage, and goodbye.
Các anh các chị được đón em về.
Tên anh chưa biết, chiến công anh bất diệt.
Tâm nguyện đưa tin anh em nồng đốc